Lowe picked up two girls while in Atlanta attending the Democratic National Convention in the summer of 1988 and videotaped them having sex with each other. One of those girls turned out to be 16 years old.
And it was captured on tape that you'd slept with some girls that were underage, that you didn't know were underage.
I have nobody to blame but myself. You know, I really don't. And you got to accept responsibility for what you do.
Rob Lowe was able to get away with a sex tape scandal in 1988. He and another adult fooled around with a 16-year-old girl. The incident was filmed and later leaked to the media. Yet Rob never faced any criminal charges and ended up secretly settling with the victim's family. So let's get into it. So Rob Lowe is an actor who's been in the industry for a very long time. He's worked on a variety of projects like the film The Outsiders, which premiered in the 80s, and he's also been on the television series Parks and Recreation, which I love that show, and that's where I first learned about Rob. But in today's video, I want to focus on his 1988 sex tape scandal, because it's something that nowadays would most likely ruin anyone's career, but a scandal he was able to survive. At this point in his life, he was a 24-year-old male who was getting intimate with a 16-year-old and filming it. But Rob acknowledges that he was struggling at this point in his life. He was in his 20s and he was abusing alcohol. He ended up going to rehab. He was quoted saying, "It's not a great recipe for success to give an 18-year-old male fame, money, drugs, and expect there not to be something that goes wrong."
Yeah, it's not a great recipe for success to give a 18-year-old male, fame, money, drugs, and expect there not to be something that goes wrong.
Now let's talk about what happened that led Rob to having this intimate moment with a teenager and filming it. So Rob was in Atlanta and he went to a club called Club Rio. It was downtown and it was a dance club where he met two women, one named Tara and another named Jan.
So the problem is people don't know the facts of the case. They don't know it's a bar where I get carded going in. So why wouldn't I assume everybody else is 21? That's not on me.
So I guess Rob has a point there, because he did meet both of these women at a bar that's supposed to be 21 plus, but Tara was 23 and Jan was 16. It was on July 17th, 1988, where he met these two ladies, and they ended up going back to his hotel room, the Hilton in Atlanta. What's really weird about this situation is that it seems like Rob Lowe was in town for the Democratic National Convention in Atlanta. So I don't really know, why is he getting all frisky when he's there for politics? It just seems a little bit bizarre.
Lowe picked up two girls while in Atlanta attending the Democratic National Convention in the summer of 1988 and videotaped them having sex with each other. One of those girls turned out to be 16 years old, and her mother filed a civil suit against Lowe.
So yes, Rob was sued, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but let's talk about the laws in Georgia. Let's go through some of Georgia's history, because before 1918, the age of consent was 10 years old. Can you guys imagine? That was like 100 years ago, like a little bit more than 100 years ago, and imagine 10-year-olds consenting. But anyways, at that point, it was raised to 14 years old. It remained at 14 years old until the year 1995 when they raised it to 16, but Georgia's always been behind. They've always been the last state to raise this age, which leaves me questioning what's going on in Georgia. So Rob goes back to the hotel with these women and they are drinking. The two ladies are making love to each other. And then before the women headed out, they took $200 from his wallet, a bottle of pills, and the tape that they were recording the whole situation on. This woman named Suzanne, who worked for Rolling Stone, actually claimed that Tara, the older 23-year-old that was a part of this situation, actually called her the next morning to tell her about the tape with Rob. It actually turns out that these two ladies were the ones who videotaped the encounter. It's not exactly clear if Rob knew that he was being videotaped, which that's extremely sketchy right there. Plus, also, why'd they take $200? Like $200 out of anything? I mean, maybe it was more back then, but really, I don't think it was. But what's unfortunate about this situation is that Tara definitely had some bad intentions going in. Tara actually asked this woman who worked at Rolling Stone to make copies of the tape, and they claimed they were not going to make copies of the tape. They did not want to get involved, but then Tara found a way around it and ultimately made 2 copies by the end of that day. Then these copies started circulating around. It's not exactly clear how much Jan was involved in this, but when I'm reading the reports, they write that the women began circulating copies of the tape, so it sounds like these two ultimately worked together. So now let's get into the tape's release, because we've seen other celebrities release tapes like these. I mean, Kim Kardashian sold hers away and blamed Ray J, but when it comes to Rob's situation, this was just sent out to the media and it started to appear on television. But what's twisted about this is that there are some tapes that involve Jan and Tara, but the main tape that was released to the media was actually a situation that he had in Paris between himself, another man, and another woman. It turns out the main videotape that was leaked had 3 different segments, and most of the tape occurred in Paris when Rob was hooking up with this woman and this man in their hotel room there. Rob was just in Paris like a day before he got to Atlanta, so this just happened and it must have been on the same tape that these 2 ladies stole away.
A Georgia DA began investigating the possibility of criminal charges, while even more embarrassingly, additional tape of Lowe having sex with a model in a Paris hotel room, footage shot before the Atlanta incident, began turning up in video stores.
It turns out the guy in that video is named Justin, and he and Rob were taking turns at hooking up with a woman, an American model named Jennifer. That part of the tape was ultimately sold as the first commercially available celebrity sex tape, which really damaged Rob's career. The second part of this tape that was released was actually a moment where Rob went to an Atlanta Braves baseball game, so it wasn't like necessarily like a sex tape. And then the final portion was the moment with these 2 women, but the worst part is that one of them wasn't a woman, but rather a girl, a 16-year-old girl. Back when this was breaking news, Rob and his team stayed silent. I mean, what do you say? And he was currently working on a film titled Bad Influence, which sounds like Rob himself. But anyways, I feel like he was worried about losing this gig, so they stayed quiet and waited to confront everything when they were promoting the film, which was probably good marketing.
The year, I mean, but you know what? I'd say I have nobody to blame but myself. You know, I really don't. And you got to accept responsibility for what you do.
Rob said it himself, you've got to accept responsibility for what you do, and he was ultimately sued for making this video with Jan. So Jan's mother actually sued Rob. She filed a civil lawsuit against him, claiming that he seduced her then minor daughter. Of course, Rob claims that he had no idea that she was 16, and he probably didn't. I mean, I don't know. If you're a grown-up, I feel like you can tell when someone's like 15 or 16, but like maybe he was really drunk, who knows? But I do think it's interesting that Jan's mother waited until Jan was 18 to file a lawsuit. So I don't know why they waited like 3 years. Maybe it took some time to gather their case. But like most Hollywood scandals, they ended up settling. So Rob's estate paid them off and he was never charged. But he did agree to perform 20 hours of community service in Los Angeles over 2 years to avoid prosecution, which 20 hours, that's like 20 hours over 2 years. Can't you do like 4 days, 5 hours, and you're done? I would much rather like dedicate a week to doing all of that and just being done with it. I can't imagine like 2 years of 20 hours of community service. That just sounds like really, unnecessary unless he was extremely busy with work.
In the end, though, no charges were ever filed against Lowe, although he voluntarily did 20 hours of community service in his hometown of Dayton, Ohio. And now, having weathered that career-threatening storm, Lowe is back in the public eye with what may be the best role of his career.
So really, this didn't hurt Rob's career at all. I mean, it did taint his image, but it didn't hurt his career and kind of added to the buzz around this Bad Influence movie.
Well, chances are Rob will not have to worry about giving up acting for shooting hoops, given the rave notices he's already been getting for his work in Bad Influence.
It does seem like Rob has been able to take this scandal and make something of it. I mean, I need you guys to comment below. Do you feel like Rob's in the wrong from what you've seen so far? I mean, it's a tricky situation here. It's definitely a scandal, but he's been super open about everything.
It's one of the reasons why I got sober. You know, it's like I like woke up one day and was like, what am I doing with my life? And I'm, 29 years in, I don't, like, people talk about, I think it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Honestly, I do, because got me sober got me married, been married 29 years, and I have 2 great sons. I don't think any of that happens without going through that scandal. I really don't.
And that's another great thing about the memoirs. Besides all the great stories, you write about getting sober, which happened for you in 1990. You were about 25 years old.
Right.
So you got it young after a rough few years.
Yeah.
Because you were given everything.
Pretty much every interview that Rob has done has included a little bit about his sex tape scandal. And at some point, he claimed that he had invented the sex tape, but he said the problem was that he didn't make any money off of it like everyone does now. So maybe he can joke about this now, but I'm sure if we went back in time to when this happened, it was probably a traumatizing moment for him. I mean, the 16-year-old Jan must have been like traumatized as well because they ultimately sued. So there's a lot to unpack here. And if this were to happen today, would Harry Styles or someone get away with it? I don't think so. But this is Rob's take on that question.
Well, now, I mean, look, it's such a different world now. I mean, everything is changed so much. I mean, people make tapes on purpose to make money and make a lot of money and to make careers. So, I mean, it's literally impossible to compare.
I do think it's important that we acknowledge that he did not know that this person was 16 to our knowledge. We don't even know if he really filmed it himself or knew that it was going to be filmed, and ultimately they took this tape and they put it out into the world. So I mean, there are a lot of wrongs here, and that's why it's such a controversial situation. But I wanted to talk about this because you guys were emailing me. So if you have any other video ideas for me, here's my email, and I'll see you guys in a new video soon. Bye guys.